guys, what's up? In today's video, we'll be unpacking a lot of big questions like, are some breeds truly harder to train than others, or is that just a myth? Should I be adjusting my training expectations based on my dog's breed? My dog is from a working breed, but they don't have a job. Is this causing behavior problems? How much does breed actually matter if my dog is a rescue or mixed breed? Is it all about how they're raised, or do genetic predispositions really matter? Well, if you've ever found yourself asking any of these questions, then this video is for you. We're going to offer some background on different dog breeds and working groups, yes, even in the context of mixed breed dogs and rescue dogs, and discuss how their motivations may manifest themselves into what people might interpret as behavior problems. We'll also get into some things we can do to more effectively work with your individual dog over the course of your life together. Let's get to it. Society has told us time and time again exactly what the image of a good dog looks like. They're perfectly housebroken, never chew anything up when you're gone, rest comfortably when they're at home alone for long periods of time, they're content getting a 20-minute walk a couple of times a day, and they never dream of jumping on people when they greet them, and heaven forbid they ever bark at anything in their entire life. What society is missing here is that not only are those expectations extremely unrealistic for the vast majority of pet dogs and are sure to set you up for failure and build resentment for your dog, they also fail to acknowledge that your dog is actually an animal with their own needs and desires. Not only that, but our dogs are, whether we like it or not, captive animals, especially in traditional Western pet culture. Because of this, we need to be well attuned to what their species-specific and sometimes even breed-specific needs are in order to coexist more peacefully with them. Every animal on Earth has its own set of specific behaviors, drives, and needs that have evolved over generations of living on this planet, and our dogs are no exception. Not only that, but we have specifically bred certain characteristics and traits into different breeds of dogs to serve different purposes over thousands of years. Common examples that you might have heard about before might include Border Collies being bred for herding sheep, a Great Pyrenees being bred to guard livestock, or a German Shorthair pointer being bred to assist in hunting birds. We very frequently see these instincts start to appear and pop up in puppyhood, even without any explicit training in any of those areas. We've been breeding dogs for jobs like this, funneling their DNA into behaviors that provide a purpose for us, and often creating intense drives for these behaviors to make them better at their jobs. Unfortunately, as the pet dog industry continues to explode, consumer marketing has had a profound and sometimes chilling effect on how we should look at and provide for our dogs. Instead of actually looking at the natural behaviors that our dogs would engage in as a species and encouraging a more well-rounded view of what they might need as individuals, they push a lot of things like cutesy apparel, unhealthy treats or foods, plush beds, and heated dog houses, the hottest new toys, a whole lot of things. This makes sense to me because it's a lot harder to market something like species-appropriate behavioral outlets than a cute little product that makes us feel good to buy for our dogs. Honestly, I feel like I could make a whole video just on that topic alone and how it has influenced dog behavior over time and what people think their dogs need versus what they actually need, but instead, I'll shift back to the topic at hand. There's a particularly concerning perspective that I often hear when working with pet dogs and in shelters, which is that it's all in how you raise them, that every dog is this ball of clay that we can mold and shape to be whatever we want as long as we put in the work. What it comes down to is not whether your dog's behavior concerns are a result of nature, their genetic predispositions, or nurture, how their environment might shape their behaviors, but rather how the two of those things interact. They're both important, and I believe that providing people with more knowledge about how their specific dog might interact with and view the world through the lens of their breed makeup is an essential key to a better relationship with their dog. It sets them up to more effectively manage and treat their behavior concerns too. Ultimately, it helps us to better understand our dog's motivations and needs, and if we better understand their motivations and needs, training is much more effective. Before we go any further, I highly recommend checking out Kim Brophy's book, Meet Your Dog, pictured here. I've read this book a number of times, and every time I read it, I walk away with a better understanding of my own dogs and my client dogs. Here's a little blurb from the website for Meet Your Dog. Kim lays out information about domestic dogs from the perspective of how they learn, the environment's influence on behavior, the role genetics play, and the dog's individual self. Easily remembered as LEGS, you will be able to use this approach to assess and gain a new knowledge, appreciation, and understanding of various breeds, as well as individual dogs. The LEGS model is ultimately my inspiration for making this video, since it has transformed my work with my clients. And I recommend this book to anyone who is in the dog industry in any capacity, or even people who are just everyday pet owners and want to better understand their individual dog. So let's talk about a few select examples of dogs exhibiting breed-specific behaviors and why more training drills may not necessarily solve your problem. Then, we'll talk about some ways that you can fulfill these outlets for your dogs and give you some considerations on how to best work with them over the course of their life. Let's start with this beautiful, poofy white cloud of a dog, Great Pyrenees. Look at that beautiful coat. He's so calm, just chilling there in the sunshine. They're supposed to be really good with kids and animals and lower energy, right? The human expectation for this dog might look something like this: snuggling and cuddling inside, exercising by playing occasional fetch, performing tricks, being quiet and staying in an unfenced yard, and welcoming people and animals into the home without any drama. But here's the reality for this breed. These dogs were designed to work independently of humans, to spend long periods of time outside in the elements, patrolling, observing, and barking, and to be wary of strange people and animals, especially animals approaching their territory. After all, they have been bred to be really good at their jobs as livestock guardian dogs. While they are exceedingly patient with children and animals who are in their circle, this most often does not extend to strangers. People who try to keep a Pyrenees as a pet frequently run into issues of the dog seeming to not listen well or progress far in training, that they're difficult to motivate with traditional rewards like food and toys, frequent and excessive barking at passerbys, and varying degrees of unfriendliness to visiting people or animals, including aggression concerns. All of these behaviors are typical for the breed, and beyond that is what they were designed at their very core to do. So, how do we comfortably live with the Pyrenees and provide for their needs at the same time? Making an effort to understand and meet your Pyrenees' needs will make life easier for everyone. Make sure your yard is securely fenced. These dogs instinctively want to patrol their territory, and historically, territory for them can be made up of hundreds of acres. Without a secure physical barrier, a Pyrenees will wander at will. Allow time for your dog to spend time outside guarding. Let him sit sentry in the yard for limited periods throughout the day. This may involve coordination with the neighbors and their dogs, or trial and error to figure out an appropriate schedule or different times for this to happen. Incorporate some calming enrichment into your dog's yard time. Encourage him to sniff, forage, and chew while outside, so he'll be less likely to spend all of his time on alert. You may also find it helpful to incorporate perimeter patrols into your routine. Patrol the borders of your property with your Pyrenees. Encourage him to mark and investigate, and even do a bark or two to announce to the world that he's on duty. If your property is small, make an effort to get your dog out to some wide open space and allow him to patrol, sniff, and explore to his heart's content while you amble alongside. Understand that your Pyrenees is genetically designed to work away from people and to think independently and make his own decisions. Training should be thoughtful and low pressure. It will serve you well to have patience and be prepared to use a lot of management to instill good habits. Teach your Pyrenees a predictable process for when people or other animals visit the home, taking time to teach skills beforehand and set them up to succeed. Understand that this might involve having a safe space away from the action for your Pyrenees to hang out, especially if the visitors are of the animal variety. All right, let's move on to our second example, the Belgian Malinois. These are the coolest dogs in the world, right? They climb ladders and trees, and they're so badass. Plus, they're gorgeous and intimidating. No one's gonna mess with you with your Malinois at your side. First off, let's get a little history on this breed. Belgian Malinois were originally bred in Belgium as herding dogs, specifically for working with sheep and cattle. They were developed in the late 19th century as part of a group of Belgian Shepherd breeds and were prized for their intelligence, agility, and strong work ethic. Over time, their abilities extended beyond herding, and they became known for their protective instincts, endurance, and versatility, making them excellent police, military, and protection dogs. Today, they're widely used for law enforcement, search and rescue, military operations, and competitive dog sports. Despite their shift in roles, their herding roots still influence their high energy, strong drive, and a need for a job to do. The human expectation for this dog might look something like this: a dog who has a perfect on-off switch. He can perform all of his fantastical feats of agility and athleticism, and then be content to hang out and nap when we don't need him. He's tolerant of new people when we have visitors, but intimidating to unwanted guests. Able to be trusted free in the house and yard without destroying things. He's the perfect dog if we can just show him who's boss. But here's the reality for this breed. These dogs are bred to do. They need physical exercise. Yes, every day. They need mental exercise. Yes, every day. These dogs have intense prey drive and bite drive. Not biting is not an option. So this drive needs to be channeled in a safe and appropriate manner. They are primed to react first, think later, and to not back down from a challenge. People who keep a Belgian Malinois as a pet frequently run into issues of the dog being destructive, hyperactive, reactive to any kind of stimuli, bitey, aggressive, and overall just plain challenging to live with. These behaviors are actually not typical of a mentally and physically sound dog who is getting their needs met. In fact, these behaviors are so common in pet homes for this specific breed that it should give you an idea of just how unsuitable most standard pet homes are for these specific dogs. So, how can we live with a Malinois comfortably? Well, first, I would advise being honest with yourself and your capacity. If you cannot plan on spending a significant amount of your time intentionally working with and exercising your Malinois, not just when they're young, then I cannot recommend them for most pet homes. These dogs are high maintenance, and their physical and mental well-being depends on having their extensive needs met on a regular basis. Having a yard or property for them to run around is not typically sufficient. These dogs need appropriate high-intensity exercise, such as training for dog sports like agility, disc, dock diving, bite sports, herding, fly ball, or lure coursing, balanced with low-intensity decompression, things like hiking, sniffing walks, foraging, licking, chewing. They need to work their minds and think every day. They need to be taught to be calm and just exist in the world, because this does not come naturally to them. They need to spend a large portion of their time with their person, working together as a team. A Malinois is certainly a difficult pet dog, but for the folks who can devote extensive time to building their relationship, managing their environment well, and meeting their needs daily, this dog will always be ready to work with you. All right, let's move on to our final example, a German Shorthair pointer. Beautiful, the perfect partner for my weekend runs. Bonus, short hair makes for easy maintenance. Let's look at some brief history on the breed. German Shorthair pointers, often shorthanded to GSPs, were bred to be versatile hunting dogs. Developed in Germany in the 19th century, they were designed to assist with hunting on both land and water. GSPs were specifically bred to hunt a variety of game, including birds, rabbits, and even larger animals like deer. Unlike specialized hunting breeds that excel in only one function, GSPs were developed to be all-purpose gun dogs, skilled in locating, pointing, flushing, and retrieving game. The human expectation for this dog might look something like this. They're happy to go for a 6-mile leashed run on the weekends. That's plenty of exercise, right? Perfectly obedient, able to walk on a short leash for 20 minutes once a day and nap the rest of the time, and they'll never ever chase squirrels or rabbits. But here's the reality for this breed. You may have already figured it out, but these dogs were bred to range far and wide in search of game, not necessarily to stick close by to humans on a 6-foot leash. They will fixate on and chase wildlife if they're left to their own devices. However, they, perhaps more than any other breed type, need to have opportunities to run free in order to be mentally healthy, and require lots of consistent work around skills like recall and thoughtful management or decision-making on the part of the human to prevent wildlife chasing proactively to keep these opportunities safe. People who keep German Shorthair pointers as pets frequently encounter issues with the dogs pulling on leash, not being able to focus around wildlife, poor recall, hyperactivity, and even anxiety disorders. In a number of these cases, these issues are a direct result of needs not being met adequately for the breed. So, how can we live with the GSP comfortably? Your pointer needs to have opportunities for freedom of movement and running. Full stop. When your pointer is young and still learning about the art of coming when called, using a long line for safety in nature may be a necessary measure to prevent them from getting the high of chasing that deer, which will make them far more likely to chase in the future. If you'd like to learn about how to work with a long line safely, you can check out our video on long line handling. Walks or runs with your GSP on a short leash a few times a week are not enough by themselves, but they can be a great addition to a higher intensity exercise plan. GSPs benefit from lots of time spent on foundational behaviors like engagement with their people, focus, and practicing calm behaviors. Calming enrichment like scent work, foraging opportunities, long sniffing walks, they'll go a long way in helping to meet your pointer's needs on days when you aren't able to get them out into the woods. Teaching your pointer games that allow them to express their genetic drives around hunting for prey can also be incredibly fulfilling for them. Shaking it up with things like water retrieves, blind retrieves, or teaching them how to use their nose to locate the intended object are all ways that we can give them opportunities to be their true, authentic GSP selves. What about mixed breed dogs? You may be saying something like, okay, Erica, this is all fine and well, but what about my dog? He's from a shelter, and we even did this DNA test thing. He's got like 10 breeds in him. How can I use this information to help him and myself live our best life together? The good news is genetics and breed-specific behaviors don't just stop contributing to the picture just because your dog is a mix of several breeds. Let's talk a little bit about gene expression in these dogs and how it all works. First off, what the heck is gene expression? Gene expression is how DNA gives instructions to the body to make proteins, which do all sorts of important jobs. Not every gene is used all the time. Some are turned on or off depending on what the body needs, which helps it adapt to different situations. Gene expression in mixed breed dogs works similarly to that in purebred dogs, but with greater genetic diversity due to contributions from multiple breeds. So here's how it works. As we've already discussed, different breeds were selectively bred for specific behaviors such as herding in border collies, guarding in Great Pyrenees, and retrieving in Labradors. A mixed breed dog inherits a combination of behavioral traits from its parents' breeds, but how those traits are expressed depends on dominant and recessive gene interactions. Since mixed breed dogs inherit traits from both parents, the exact mix of behaviors can vary. A dog from the same litter can show very different personality traits. One may be more anxious or guarded, while another may lean more toward being a social butterfly, depending on which traits were inherited. Gene expression is not static. It can also be influenced by life experiences, training, and environment. Remember how I said nature and nurture interact with each other and that it's not necessarily all about one or the other? For example, a dog with a genetic predisposition for high predatory instincts may show it more strongly as an adult if raised in an environment at a young age where chasing wildlife is rehearsed often. Think of the dog who's in the backyard chasing squirrels every day from early puppyhood. The struggles around predatory behavior can become especially pronounced if that dog has, let's say, a German Shorthair pointer in its breed makeup, even if it's a mixed breed dog, and even if that percentage is really small. In summary, the behavior and drives of a mixed breed dog are influenced by the genetic cocktail of their parents. While some traits like energy levels or social tendencies are more likely to emerge from one parent, others may be less predictable. Environmental factors and how the dog is raised play a big role in how those inherited traits are expressed. It would serve you well to learn about your dog's specific mix of breeds and find ways to satisfy their specific, unique drives and motivations. These efforts can have a profound impact on the long-term progress of your training efforts. If you take time to get to know your learner and discover what motivates them and their behavior, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck in your work with them. Okay. There's definitely a lot to unpack when it comes to living with and working with different kinds of dogs, and it can be quite overwhelming on the surface of it all. Thanks for sticking it out with me today, and for continuing to be curious about your dog and all of the ins and outs of their various behaviors. One more thing, I know it's been a while since we've last uploaded, but I'm here to say we're excited to be back. The videos that we've created here on YouTube have been so valuable, not just in spreading a more compassionate way of training across the internet at large, but also in creating resources for our in-person client work here in Oregon. I find myself referring people to these videos to help them get a better understanding of a specific concept, how to teach a foundational skill, or even just dive deeper into how dogs learn in general. So for all of those reasons, we're making a conscious effort to create more long-form content, and I hope it's helpful for you and your journey with your dog too. With that in mind, now's a great time to make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on any of our future training videos. And while you're at it, if you've learned something today, why not give us a like? It helps for more dog guardians like you to find our videos. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.